Okay, in this video, which is the second video about nominalizations, I want to continue our discussion about this, and I want to give you some examples of well, words that I think could go either way, and you know, just discuss about how these words are made into nominalization. So take a take words like the word cut. C-U-T, you know, that could be a noun or a verb depending on how it's used in a sentence. So that you know, are we going to call that a nominalization because what came first? You know, when was it first the word cut, the verb, I cut the pay, the profit, and then we decided to treat it as a noun. I gave you your cut of the profit. So I don't think that's worth trying to investigate. I think both words, you know, have their place, and you see, because of the equality of the words in the sense of the same length, the same ease, the same simplicity and clarity there, you know, they're great words. But what about explain and explanation? See, the first cut, you know, you can see how one's used as a noun, one's used as a verb. It depends, right? Well, explanation seems, at this point, it's going to always be used as a noun alone, right? Because we already have explain. Now, at this point, what came first? It seems kind of intuitive that the word explain came first. And then we turned it by a certain process of a Latinate process, maybe adding the T-I-O-N on something, explanation, and, you know, getting an extra syllable in there to get that length into it. Now, I would consider that a genuine nominalization per Williams, you know, Williams style, because, you know, Joseph M. Williams in his book here, because it just seems intuitive that explanation is coming from explain. Now, I don't want to throw the word explain out, okay? Because, you know, let's just say you explain something to a young boy or a young girl, a child, and he still doesn't get it, and then you say, listen to the way I'm going to explain it again. And then you give it to him again, yeah? But you might want to say, well, here's my explanation to you. And I don't necessarily see how that's clunky and all that. But I do think that explanation is a nominalization of explain. All right, but I'll use it. The trouble comes when you are always using nominalizations. And you are doing it, whether consciously or subconsciously, of a sort of a pretentious way to sound a little more sophisticated and formal and complex. Well, then that's just, you know, you're playing games there. And I would there's a great help in communication when you vary things up, when you vary the levels of your words in terms of diction. You use a high diction word with a medium to very simple, clear-cut third-grade word. You use them together, they produce a pleasing harmony, short sentences with long sentences. Now just think how someone would approach your writing if you just continually wrote in these huge, long sentences, 2 or 3 lines long each sentence, and complicated, you know, compound, complex, 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 compound, complex. Mix things up. Have a small, simple sentence, and then a compound complex, then a small complex, then another small simple, then a compound complex. This is the same thing you see when someone writes a long paragraph and then he or she decides after that to write a really short paragraph. It's like a mental break, okay? And it really helps communication. So the trouble with nominalizations is when you don't know that you're using them, so that you can't, at that point you can't use them judiciously, and you overuse them. So whenever you can, and when you're writing and you start recognizing that's a nominalization, that's a nominalization, then start thinking to yourself, can I revert back to the original verb? And instead of saying the way my explanation, the way I gave my explanation to the students was awkward, why don't you just at that point go back and say the way I explained it was awkward? Now see, now that, the second version, or the latest version, the revised version, the way I explained it, that's much better than the way I presented my explanation. Oh, you know, at that point, that does definitely need to be revised out into a simpler version. So, if you begin to recognize that you've got a habit with this, and that you can actually, you really can say something a lot faster, cleaner, simpler, by reverting from the nominalization back to the verb, do it. All right, do it. Now, I want to make you aware that there are, you know, well, I'm sure you know this, but just remember this, okay? Here's a verb, draw. I draw the map now. And then we get drawing, right? My drawing of the map. I drew the map nicely. My drawing of the map was nice. At that point, revert back to I drew the map nicely, but you know, what I'm saying is the word drawing is an important word, and sometimes we use it in its own way, and sometimes we use it in such a way that we can't remember that it's coming from a verb, like the word painting. Let's go see some paintings in the museum. And I don't know the last time I actually, besides now, that I actually thought about that word as coming from the verb paint, that which has been painted. So there are all sorts of words like paint, painting, draw, drawing. All right, drive, driving, that do have a valuable noun form. All right. Now, there's also a strange class of words that seems to have seems to first start in nouns and then go to verbs. For example, summary. Now I could see how someone might say, well, sum it up, right? Not just sum, because sum might also mean addition. So the verb does seem to be sum it up. You need those adverbs and a pronoun tucked in the middle. I summed it up. I will sum it up, for people to understand that you're talking about the process of, making a summary, right? So summary was the noun. And then to verbalize it, you go in the sense of to turn it into a verb, summarize, right? So you sometimes get a nice noun that ends up being made into a verb. Noun first, and then the verb comes around later. So this thing can go either way, it seems. And I think we're safe with the general rule of what best, in the context we have, would provide a syntactic environment, you know, the words around it, that is conducive to proper and clear communication. So, you know, plenty of things to keep in mind with these nominalizations. At the very bottom, it's good for you to understand what they are and to start recognizing them, so that then you can decide whether I want to use them, keep them, switch them out, that sort of thing.